My name is Derrick Weyrauch. I'm the president and CEO of Palladium One Mining. Joining me today is Neil Pettigrew, vice president of exploration and a director of the corporation. Palladium One is an exploration stage company focused on the advancement of critical green transportation metals that serve all modes of transportation. Please refer to our forward-looking statements for additional clarifications with regards to the upcoming comments. From an overview perspective, Palladium One is a little bit unique in this day and age in that we are extremely well capitalized with over 50% of our market capitalization in cash. Our enterprise value is currently sitting at around $7 million, in part due to the woes that we're seeing on a macro level within the marketplace. Our largest shareholder who joined the roster earlier this year is Glencore. They hold a 9.99% interest in the company, and our largest shareholder is actually Eric Sprott at just over 10%. As I indicated, we are focused on the advancement of green transportation metals. Specifically, we are investigating magmatic sulfide mineralization, which tends to host a variety of metals, so is polymetallic by nature. Our key focus is nickel, copper, and PGE. So nickel and copper, as you know, satisfy the demand requirements for especially the EV vehicles, while the palladium is key in the internal combustion engine and the hybrid vehicles in terms of mitigating the harmful effects of exhaust as a catalyst. We have 4 key projects within the company, 3 of which have a similar geological model: the Canalask, Tyko, and the KS project in Finland. Both Canalask and Tyko are located in Ontario, or rather in Canada. Tyko is the core focus for us over 2023. It's a very high-grade, massive sulfide project where we believe we have a new nickel district that is completely unexplored apart from our activities. Canalask is a project that we acquired in 2022, and it's also a high-grade nickel project with a historical resource of 1.35% nickel. A lot of copper in the system, but unfortunately nobody reported it. Our third project, or rather fourth project, is the LK Project. It's a bulk tonnage disseminated sulfide project. You're looking at 2 to 3% sulfides. It is where we have our existing resources, about 90 million tons of endowment. Advanced metallurgical work has been done, and given it is at the resource stage, it very much underpins our valuation. Focusing in on Ontario at the northeast corner of Lake Superior, you'll see that we have 4 projects, 2 of which are not being worked at this time due to permitting challenges. They are the Big Lake and Hemlo East project. Hemlo East is the extension of Barrick's Hemlo gold mine. Both of these projects were acquired earlier this year when we did an acquisition of a small firm named Metalcorp. Our focus, again, has been Tyko, but most recently, about 2 months ago, we acquired an additional property package named Tyko 2. This entire area where Tyko and Tyko 2 is, it's sitting inside a large batholith. It's known as the Black Pick batholith, and has never even been mapped by the Ontario Geological Survey. And we have had some tremendous exploration success on the property, and believe this to be a new district that is largely untapped. So it's very early stage project, but interesting. Just to give you context in terms of scale, just looking at the Tyko 1 project, it is, when compared to the scale of some globally recognized nickel-copper-cobalt projects, quite a large land package, and we believe there could be something of merit hiding within the property package. Zooming in on Tyko itself, you can see here the discovery success we've had. A couple of years ago, we found the Smoke Lake zone, and that was on the back of having to shut down activity in Finland and having an idea that there could be something of merit at Smoke Lake based on a 40-year-old airborne survey that had been done. But once we had that discovery and started drilling it out, we really came to the recognition that we didn't have a good understanding of the project itself because there's just a lack of data. So we've spent the last couple of years acquiring data and developing a geological model. Through that time, we also had the very high-grade discovery over at West Pickle, and it's 20 kilometers away from Smoke Lake. And just to give you a sense of the scale of this. We have some extremely highly anomalous soil anomalies over at the Koopa Lake target, something we would like to drill. We're still awaiting permits. We've been a little bit frustrated with getting those permits. But in total, you've got about a 30-kilometer strike length there, multiple zones of known mineralization. And about this time last year, we really developed a geological model that suggests that this large intrusion that you see at the top of the image, it's known as the bulldozer mafic ultramafic intrusion. It had to be fed from something. And the thesis that we've been working on are all these east-west trending structures that are highlighted in purple. Could be the feeder system or the conolith to that bulldozer. And we spent the better part of 2023 conducting multiple tests to try and de-risk and prove up, or ground truth, if you will, that thesis. And we've just started drilling on some of those targets again. If we flip over to the east side of the property, you can see the Smoke Lake zone where our original discovery was. We currently have about 48 holes into that zone, about 6,000 meters of drilling. The massive sulfide starts at surface. And you can see in the bottom images there, it's just wonderful material, extremely high tenor metal in the sulfides, which makes it a bit of a special project. And there's obviously additional, what we believe are conoliths, as shown here again on the property. All told, we think we're well over 100 kilometers worth of strike length on these various conoliths. So it's a lot to deal with, and we need to try and refine our views as much as possible. And as I said, that's what a large part of 2023 was all about, was to develop the targets. Coming back over to the west side of the property where the West Pickle zone is, some more samples of some of the drilling that we've done, extremely high grade mineralization and extremely high grade tenor metal once again. But how do you tackle a project of this size? Over 20,000 hectares just on Tyko 1. So, just like you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So we've segregated the property into 3 zones, as you see on the top right of this image. And we have undertaken very specific activities in each of those zones: West Pickle, McGill Lake, and the Embers/Smoke Lake zone. But with that, I'll pass it off to Neil to provide you more detail.
Thanks, Derrick. So as Derrick said, we've actually been very busy this summer. We developed this conolith model last fall, and this year has all been about proving up that model. This is a unique part of Ontario in that it has never been mapped by the Ontario Geological Survey. And so every bit of data that we collect is our own. And we've had a very large crew out. We've taken over 7,000 soil samples this summer, spread out over this 30-kilometer strike. It's not just soil sampling, but geological mapping and prospecting. And all of this is culminating in developing targets on these conoliths. And we have proven up several of these to be mafic ultramafic conoliths, finding outcrops and boulders in several locations. The key area is up in the northwest of the project, which is between our historic RJ zone, which has some broad intervals, 85 meters of 0.5% nickel, 0.2% copper, and our really high-grade West Pickle zone. The work that we've done this summer has really shown this to be really part of one major mineralizing system. The gray hashed area that you see on the screen is the magnetic trend, the interpreted strike extent of the conolith, which is more like a pipe-like body. And we have some lovely soils, as you can see, that are correlating with that. The underlay here is actually a Magneto Survey that we just released earlier this week. This was the first deep penetrating geophysical survey that we've done on Tyko, and that shows a very nice anomaly extending from West Pickle over towards the conolith and up towards those soil anomalies. So this is just an example of what we like to do at this company, which is to advance and de-risk targets before testing. We are going to do some preliminary tests this fall at the drill program on these soils. However, we are going to require additional permits to do deeper drill testing on this MT anomaly in the future. So we also had another large event. We had the acquisition of Tyko 2. As we led this compilation program this past year in the Tyko area, we identified the Ferries Mashpinabe mafic-ultramafic complex as being much larger than had previously been mapped. And that led us up into this area called Tyko 2. And the acquisition of this property brings a few things. The Mashpinabe intrusive proper has historic copper-nickel PGE mineralization, and that's going to be one of our main targets this fall. And crucially, it comes with drill permits. And so, fair game on that one. The Geonet zone is very interesting. We flew VTEM on this project already, and we have found that we have some not just anomalies correlating with existing zones, but some new ones. And Geonet is one of these, where you have the VTEM anomaly offset from the main showing area. And so the best part of that one has not yet been found. But once again, we are waiting on permits before we test that particular target.
So staying on the theme of Canalas targets and developing targets, we acquired the Canalask Project in 2022. It is part of the Kluane mafic-ultramafic intrusion. It's a 150-kilometer long belt. This project happens to be about 50 kilometers away from the Alaskan border. What's unique about it is that there's a historical resource estimate of about 400,000 tons at 1.3% nickel. They never reported the copper. And it sits proximal to an embayment area very close to the Alaskan Highway. The Alaskan Highway is about a 4-hour drive from Whitehorse. And from the highway itself, it's only about a 4-kilometer road or trail into the target area. In many ways, this project is actually easier to access than our Tyko project and less expensive to work, given there's also a camp that we can avail ourselves on at the triangle you see at the road there. It's a former, or it actually is a current tourist camp. Interesting about this project is that the geometry is still preserved when it was originally in place compared to Tyko, making it an easier exploration activity. And this project has not been worked for about 15 years as a result of having been dropped when Falconbridge was acquired in around 2007. And the project ended up in a junior, and that was not advancing the project whatsoever. So with our relationship with the Glencore that we acquired earlier this year, when they came in at an equity level on the company, we were able to get all of their historical information, which has really helped accelerate the understanding of this project and the target. Neil?
Yes, so as Derrick mentioned, the relationship with Glencore was quite key here in getting that confidential information. In many ways, they got their project back. I think they were on the right track back in 2008 when they were working this project, and they had done a geophysical survey, a ground EM survey, and found some very large conductors underneath some historic holes from the 80s, these shallow holes. Unfortunately, it was 2008. They were being taken over by Xstrata, and the world was ending, and someone didn't download their handheld GPS. And so the exact position of these conductors was not very well constrained. And so this past fall, we reestablished access to this area, recut the grid, and redid that EM survey in order to, once again, develop these targets and de-risk them. And so this is something that we're actually looking at testing sort of March, April next year. It is a very unique area. We have that footwall deposit, and that generally only occurs when there's some larger deposit within the main body. And that's what we're chasing here. So the hypothesis is that these plates are representing a deeper accumulation of massive sulfide at the base of this ultramafic dike, as you can see in the upper left corner of this screen. This is the idea. And we plan to get in there and drill a little bit deeper, not too deep. We're talking maybe 300-500 meters. Do a borehole EM and chase this target. And this is a fairly simple idea to test. Logistically, as Derrick pointed out, it's very easy to work. For the Yukon, I call it Yukon Light. And if this is successful, this could develop very quickly for us.
Yeah, so our budget for next year on this project for the initial phase in, let's call it end of March, April timeframe when the winter season lets up a little bit, is just under $2 million. And obviously with our cash position well in excess of $10 million, we're extremely well positioned to advance this project at that time. Moving across the ocean over to Finland, just as a refresher or perhaps an introduction to some of the audience. Finland is a fantastic mining jurisdiction. Our LK project, which is the bulk tonnage disseminated project, sits in north-central Finland, a couple-hour drive from a main port city of Oulu or southeast from Rovaniemi, one of the main mining centers. There's been a lot of chatter about Finland recently due to a lot of the success, whether it be Rupert Resources or Sakatti, etc. We just think it's a fantastic jurisdiction to be in. And one of the big things about Finland is the intellectual data set that is available publicly is extremely impressive. So when we started working this project about 4 years ago, we had all the mapping done, all the sampling, reconnaissance drilling, etc., all the things that we do not have at Tyko that we need to do. And all this data was generated by the state at the time. And we were able to quickly advance the project. So you see here on LK, we have 4 ellipses in red, which represent the resources that we currently have. The indicated resources are basically the Kakua area, the 2 main ellipses, where the elevated PGEs are. The Hakiaho zone is mainly copper, nickel, bulk tonnage style mineralization, as I said here. And when this resource came out in 2022, it was just as the markets were getting a little bit soft, and we took a decision to focus our efforts on the extremely high grade discoveries we've had in Ontario, as opposed to continuing to advance this project extremely quickly. But it's a very strategic project, especially given the critical mineral incentives and desires of the EU, which obviously Finland is a part of. But adjoining LK is the KS project, which is the same effectively geological model as what we have at Canalask, or to a lesser extent at Tyko. And you see that coming in at the bottom right-hand corner of this image. And you see in these images, both the gravity and the magnetics, the KS project in the large rectangle, while the LK project from the prior pages are in these thinner sections. KS is roughly 20,000 hectares in size, so it's quite a good-sized project as well. The nuance here, what's really important to communicate, is that the metal tenor in sulfides at LK is extremely high. We're talking about 3 ounces of precious metal, 10% nickel, and about 13% copper. But, the project itself is only running at around 2-3% sulfide, so, you're not having massive grade. But to the extent that the thesis proves up with regards to this large porpoising feature that's going across Finland and joining our LK project, and we can find a massive sulfide or even a semi-massive sulfide unit, it could be extremely valuable rock. Neil, maybe I'll pass it back to you.
Sure. So one of the reasons I really like this project is its potential scale. This gravity anomaly that you see in the upper left corner is visible on like the geological map of Finland on page size. It's huge. And the Geological Survey of Finland actually did de-risk this for us a bit, just a little to the east of our property boundary. They drilled a deep hole. They actually intended to drill to 3 kilometers, but they only got to 1.5 kilometers before they took Christmas off and the hole collapsed. But the last 100 and so meters was peridotite. And so they confirmed that gravity anomaly is due to ultramafic cumulates. And so in order to accumulate that much, you need to have a lot of magma flow. And this is further supported by that picture in the center there, which is this, what they call a pseudoconglomerate, which is basically melted orthoneiss that lies along the crest of that gravity anomaly. And what that is probably an original Archean structure that this conduit has exploited, and it's pumped heat up through it. And so in order to get that much heat, you once again have to have massive amount of magma flow, and that's exactly the type of system that you want to form on the Rilsk or Moises Bay, because this may have fed not the Kalisma complex, but other Proterozoic intrusions like the Chemi-Chrome mine further to the west. So this may have been a very long-lived conduit system. And so it is a very interesting target for us. As Derrick mentioned, the in situ value of the massive sulfide could be very, very high. And so it is an earlier stage project at this point, but it's just one example of some of the quality projects that we have in Palladium One.
And acquiring those quality projects is really fundamental to our strategy, where we have wanted and have, I think, successfully done an acquisition of multiple projects that could be of district scale and very meaningful on a global basis. And it's allowed us to attract the interest of major sponsors, such, again, I'll repeat with Glencore. And, one of the big questions that we get quite often is with regard to the Glencore relationship. And I must say it's extremely productive and useful in that we are benefiting from their technical expertise when required. There are no hooks on the transaction. We effectively have an equity investment, and they assist us via a technical committee of management with regards to our exploration activity. So we get the benefit of a few more brains, and for a junior, that's obviously a very meaningful contribution to the entire equation. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and attention. We will be attending the Forum 1 conference in Munich next week, so the first week of November. And thereafter, we will be in Zurich on the 13th through the 15th for the Precious Metal Conference. I'd love to see you there. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, info@palladiumoneinc.com. Thank you very much for your time and attention.